So let's go ahead and get started. I know we have a whole bunch of new subscribers. If you are tuning in for the first time, my name is Steve Vetterl. I am the firm's chief market analyst. Sounds like a big flashy title, right? Really doesn't. All it means is that I'm your risk manager. Try hard to put the forecasts of the markets and what's going on into an understandable format and make it more palatable to deal with some of the psychological issues that come with trading and the certain craziness that has always and will continue to ensue. So let me read real quickly. This is going to be a shorter call today. So if you have questions, please, although it seems like I say it every week, right? If you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A window, not the chat window. I'm going to read through risk disclosure real quick. We're going to go through the Forex calendar, talk a little bit about the charts, although really isn't much to report from Tuesday, as we've been in somewhat of a holding pattern here as far as currencies go. Unless you're trading the Canadian dollar, it's been a little rougher ride. So trading in foreign exchange markets carries high risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Trading on margin and utilizing leverage can carry an even higher level of risk that can lead to complete loss of investment funds. So before deciding to trade the foreign exchange market using any of the software, I'm going to talk a little about as well today, please carefully and diligently consider your personal investment objectives, level of experience, and risk tolerance. Most importantly, if you are going to go live, I suggest that you do a little bit of a demo account run first before you put my money to work. So if you're sharing any of the results from Alexander, Iris, Einstein, any of the pieces that I showed last week of some of the results of Variable, none of these are company recommended settings. So the Auvoria doesn't have any recommended settings. They're not a financial advisory firm. They just license software that individuals can use at their own discretion. Okay, so software comes with default settings. Some are adjustable, some aren't. Some are the settings you cannot change in some of the newer pieces of software coming out. And the expert advisors will be able to customize some. We really have nothing to do with the customer's broker account. We don't solicit or take investments. We don't recommend any brokers. Really just licensing software. Cool thing about this also is if you go into the back office, the translation into multiple languages of the Forex Basics course that Adeze has so kindly put together for us is getting better and better. So for up and the down lines that do not speak English, there are multiple languages coming out and or already out, which is great. So let's take a look at the Forex calendar. So I know that probably this weekend it's going to be less people paying attention to what's going on, and probably more because it is a very big holiday weekend. It's one of the largest in the United States and Canada. It is the Labor Day weekend. Let's switch over to the screen. Look at that, I can actually switch over the screen. So you should see the Forex week, and you want to make sure we're looking at the next week. So September, a lot of events coming up then. So we have the 6th through the 12th. You can always change the dates up here. I always filter out anything but what's called a red folder. These are just higher impact news stories. Okay. Keep in mind the holiday that I mentioned. It's one of the big ones of the year. I used to be a kid living out in the East Coast. My parents had a really cool boat. This was like the last weekend we could go on our boat for a while to go back to school, which kind of stunk. So looking at ECB press conference, I don't really see any reason, regardless of what currency you're trading, to be turned off next week. I mean, if anything, we're stuck in even though we've had some pretty big news events, surprisingly, all of the movement in global markets has taken place in equities. really hasn't taken place to a larger degree. You keep in mind, just talking about the majors that we trade, there's been a lot of movements in 25 currency pairs to trade out there. But as far as the majors, as I'll show you guys, haven't really been that much movement. We've been sort of stuck in a. Let's gonna drop this screen over here. Let's get logged in. ECB press conference Thursday. Although this is usually a fairly big event, I don't know if this will be online versus them taking Q&A next Thursday. So might want to be aware of that. But as I'm going to talk about next weekend with a guest host we're going to have on, who will remain nameless at this point. Got to keep the mystery going of next weekend. We actually have, drum roll please, we have some different settings for Alexander and Einstein that has been brought to us, and we have had quite a bit of time to go over it in discussions and calls last week, and we're going to be announcing some different settings. So essentially in a different group of settings to have on top of the settings. It seems like I talk about like a broken record almost the last 4 months. So in addition to the high volatility settings, and I'm going to have some data to back that up, some live FX book accounts. This is for those that trade Alexander and Einstein. Just taking a look at some of the things that I've brought up before, level range that I've mentioned, increasing changes to the range level, as well as the position size multiplier. No real changes to the currency pairs, although the argument has been made with this data, at least for the near term, because of the volatility, be taking out the Euro JPY from the pair. So some of the data I'm going to show you guys next Saturday, which is kind of a teaser, right? But we're organizing that since this is going to be a shorter call on a holiday weekend. Figured I'd give you something to look forward to next week. So let everybody know up and down lines. I should probably say we're not going to record this, right? I guarantees everybody's going to show up. So I'm not sure if we're going to record this or not next Saturday, but I'd like to have everybody on as much as possible to go over some of this. So developers are running this week. These are the developers of Einstein and Alexander. Let's talk a little bit about, I'm trying to think about what, I think probably the thing that since I want to log in. There we go. You guys see this screen now? They're having some problems logging in this morning. So you should be able to see DXY. You guys see the screen? This is US dollar. Okay, cool. I'm having some problems logging into this system this morning. It keeps kicking me out. So hopefully we'll be good. In any case, for some of the questions I got, we had a big reversal last week in equities. As I'd mentioned, we were getting above a very steamy level and had just a massive reversal in the S&P 500 last week. Took place. Tech stocks had a big reversal, all kinds of stuff. This took most of center stage last week. Why do I show equities? Because they can influence what's going on in the dollar. So as I'm looking at just a daily chart of the dollar here, notice that 92 has been a really solid floor that's held this as support. And now we're going back up, arguably towards what may be the other side of the range. Okay, so gold's held pretty steady because of that. It's pulled back a little bit. Most metals have. And then taking a look at the main currency that takes up most of the, see that head fake that I had mentioned? So when we popped back above, 1, 2, 3, 4. It was basically 4.5, almost 5 days ago at this point. We popped back up and just on a daily, just this little teeny wick here, maybe not the easiest to see. But once we popped above this range and reversed down, I said, we're probably going to go visit the other side. And we almost traveled all the way to the other side of this. So what does that mean? So I warned essentially on Tuesday that at least for those, not necessarily to jump in front of Einstein and start turning off this and that, because I get a lot of questions surrounding that. I wasn't making that suggestion, but usually when I'll see a candle like this reverse, some sort of island reversal or a shooting star pattern, which this is not, I usually will not accept trades essentially that are going long until we've made a decent move back down inside the range. Certainly could start accepting longs back down towards this, because it does not look to me like this is looking to break out, which could completely change on Tuesday of next week, which Tuesday through literally almost next Friday is when a lot of the big institutional traders get back to work, primarily in the New York area from whatever Hamptons or yacht vacation they were on. The point of that is that usually the volume picks up dramatically into the beginning of the week, essentially ending out the last month of the third quarter into the first month being October of the final quarter for Q4 of the year. That's when most of the shifting in financial assets take place, especially in the area of credit markets, that being bonds internationally, that affecting obviously the dollar as well as equities. So I would expect this sort of lower volatility environment that we've been in to be a lot more volatile. Does that mean it's going to start next week? I don't know. It typically does. Does that mean it's going to be volatile for a protracted period of time? It could be. So ideally, the bottom line is when more volume and juxtapositioning takes place, which typically is the case in the beginning of Q4, you can bet that most financial assets around the world, especially the big stuff that trades, Euro USD being right front and center stage on that, is going to be more volatile. So I would expect we're going to see a break from this at some point. Could that be next week? I could be wrong. It could take place the following week. Hell, it could take place at the beginning of October, right? So it just depends upon what central banks are making what adjustments. Obviously, they've been in an exceptionally accommodative mood, right? Essentially sprinkling assets and cash down upon primary dealer accounts across the world, which has inflated a lot of assets, primarily equities. So I would expect that to break. So same thing here. Notice we had that reversal. Again, this is all DXY related in my opinion. So when the dollar poked a little bit of its head down below the line, was met with buying. Probably too much short at this point. We saw a little bit of a squeeze. Doesn't look like much because it's mostly the end of the summer driven, lower volume and volatility type stuff. So just be on alert for all that. So the USD JPY, I guess for lack of a better pattern of understanding, at least on the daily chart, it does appear like we're a little bit of a wedge forming here. I think a lot of currencies are not, this here. For those not familiar with what a wedge looks like, it's just almost like a D-shaped pattern you can break out of. Friday was a doji candle, which means it's an indecisive move. Typically, it's something you see along with a wedge that indicates a larger move could be coming out of that. If I was a betting person, just based upon the weakness of the dollar, although the shift of the Forex forecasters and a lot of the big money out there has all been things like, yeah, we're going to 85 on the DXY. So that means that everything else related to that in terms of the majors is going to rally. You would think that'd be the case with US DJPY, but I think there's other factors at play here that maybe I don't understand fully as to what's going on. So I spend less time projecting what's going to go on with this. Let's take a look in Euro JPY. Again, stuck tight range. Certainly has been an argument brought to us from the data. Remember, you guys, everything with me is data driven. It has to be long. It has to be well laid out data in order for me to want to make a change in any type of trading or any type of expert advisor that I have running a different type of pool of money. Let's see, GBP NZD for those that trade. A fantastic currency pair. Unfortunately, it is not very predictable, and it can move extreme. All right, so what else do I want to say? So for the question I just got, here's the DXY daily chart. I do think most of what's going on in Forex land is going to be predicated primarily in what I call correlated, meaning one event happens, another follows in similar fashion of exact opposite, right? Is uncorrelated. Correlated meaning that they move together. I think that if we get a break below this, I think if I was a betting person at this point, we would probably visit 94-ish area first, maybe even head fake that, and then head back down below. More than likely, if we go back down to the 92 area, we're going below it. That's typically what happens. Remember, the market's job is primarily to fool the largest amount of investors at a given time. So if most people think that the dollar is, in the short term, oversold, which I certainly thought it was back at the end of July, and that's why I've been squawking about it being in a tight range for a period of time, which has been over a month now in a very tight range. You can bet that it's coiling up for some sort of protracted move outside of this range. All right. What else did I want to say? Let's talk a little bit about real quickly, and I'm going to take some Q&A. We're not going to run this too much longer today. Let me shift over the screens because I want you guys to see. Has everybody gotten the, tell you what, if you could please, have you guys gotten the updated email from the EA task force? Does everybody know what's going on with Variable and the release of the other softwares? We've actually signed a 5th company to financial talks, by the way. You guys kind of know what's going on? Yeah, it was in this week's newsletter. So I'm asking this question because I really think you guys should make sure that you stay plugged into my Telegram channel, right? Especially the Auvoria Prime main Telegram channel. If you choose not to go that route, then at the very least, pay attention to the emails that they sent you. But let me just quick switch over because I'm getting a lot of no's here. So these are the updates from the task force. Tyler and company's running the task force. Guys have done a great job. It's been a tremendous amount of work that I can't even begin to know how much work these guys have done on this stuff. But they're submitting their onboard. I know a lot of the VPS, virtual private server company work is almost finished. I was actually in a fairly extended meeting yesterday with one of the developers overseas. Patrick has told me that we're getting closer to launch, but it should be Variable should be first. So it's kind of hard to see. I know there's a lot of the email in here on this next slide, but it's getting integrated into the back end. And Dasan, which you guys will hear that name more and more. Dasan's the developer Variable. This guy's been working really hard to get this done. And I know that Tyler with Gearbox and Stratomist, Neo the Legend, these guys are nearing some final touches as far as getting the software launched. I've had more of an opportunity recently because as we get ready to launch, I pay more attention, as I kind of did in the beta developing of the software and the testing that's been going on. But just from a very high level perspective, I try not to get too much in the weeds on what was going on with this stuff Although occasionally I would just poke in, and the community and the collaboration is some of the best I've ever seen in my whole career. And that is really rare in a company that's barely over 4 months old. So again, all the things I saw in this organization that really motivated me to sort of take this role, because this is the first time I've ever gone into this area, as many of you know. I've mostly just worked with big Wall Street firms in my career and or run my own shop. I've always loved the Forex area, but always wanted to have a number of algos running different chunks of a portfolio for me. But as you guys may know from the early days of my discussions of this, in institutional land, this is just an exceptionally costly thing to build out. Many of the big Wall Street hedge funds that are at least high frequency trading shops spent 5, 10, 20 million coding the software that runs for that. And in some cases, like a Renaissance Capital, these guys are absolutely printing money. But it has taken an incredible amount of duration and time and effort to do. So when I get questions from subscribers to say things like, well, I want the software to perform well enough each month so that it will automatically pay for my software costs. I know there are some out there that do that. I can promise you that is not the communication that comes from our team, because of the fact that the costs associated with in the normal institutional part of the world with running software like this are so exceptionally high. I think $200 a month for software, or even 300 for maybe 2 licenses, I think that's nothing, guys. I understand for some of you it's a stretch, and I get it. My heart goes out to you, but if you can find a way to make it work, and or find 3 people to come in under you or more, right? The software is free. But when I start getting into showing some of these numbers like I did for Variable, I almost have to dial expectations back, because they've done very well. And most importantly to me, many of them are the type of expert advisors that are working hard for the subscriber in their accounts, trading the account for you. And they require very little maintenance. There's nowhere near the type of settings adjustments that we've had to make with Einstein and Alexander, right? So, because I know that's tough. The average person, probably a lot of what I talk about is somewhat confusing. Hopefully it makes sense, at least beginning to, from a high level standpoint, which is my primary goal, is to have the education go out of understanding the markets just very generically from a macro perspective. That will give one much more confidence in understanding what's going on, even though they're not actually trading the account. So with that being said, I'll leave that slide up. Let me just answer a couple questions here. So a couple of the questions, looks like you guys did not get that email. I would just go into the back office. I don't know if you guys, here, I'll show you. I seem to get a lot of questions about this. Let me just make sure. This is redundant for some of you. I wish you a happy Labor Day. Meeting's over. But for those that are not sure, let me go in here and share. This is how you get into the back office. I always bookmark everything. That's why you guys see like a bazillion bookmarks. But this is the back office right here. So you go to the dashboard. This is AuvoriaPrime.com. Log in. Choose the product that you're working on. Eventually you're going to have other products. You can see Variable here and all the others across the top. Once you click on the product, you're going to be going through an entire onboarding. But essentially, just click on Einstein in this particular case. It brings you to all of the onboarding, which has all of the backup videos and the settings and everything. all of my forecast trade week and midweek software strategy calls. Everything's right here. Look, here again, there's my ugly face. So I put down a notes for the week. I put everything back in here. Forex factory calendars, upcoming currency trends, stuff like that, profit management type. So next week, we're going to have some changes to some of this stuff. What I'm going to do as far as the FX book accounts, I was going to start some new live accounts. What I'm going to start a live account with Variable, not a demo, by the way, just because I've been working with it for a long time. I'm going to be starting a demo account with the new settings. We're going to be starting a live account with the new settings. And we're probably going to be 2 currency pairs, not 3, even for larger amounts. So just keep that in mind. So, yeah, here, this is from compliance. Emails are sent to the email address in your Auvoria Prime account. It may land in spam, or if you have Gmail or other boxes, you haven't opened emails for a couple of times. So, as I've told one client last week, I showed up at their house and they had like 10,000 emails in their inbox. I'm like, is there really anything in here you want? They had a couple. Just showed them how to set up a folder for it. We blew the entire inbox and trash folder out. Whole thing. So if you're feeling gutsy, go in and blow out the whole inbox if there's nothing you need. I highly recommend it. Other questions? Let me just go through real quick. Yeah, so, okay, so it looks like a lot of you guys didn't get the email, so just follow that process if you would. If you want, I can also post some of this on my Telegram channel too. So, all right, what else? Anything else I wanted to say? Oh, with the other question I got, doesn't look like it goes back that far, or does it? Let me look into that. So it looks like we go back from August 30th all the way. I guess we can only archive so much. Drop back to the bottom date. July 19th? Let me look into that. I'm actually going to take that idea and see if they can put it as a pinned video at the top, you guys. It was the May 30th Saturday is the day that we introduced the high volatility settings. I had Tyler on as a special guest, and we went into detail about that. It doesn't look like that's in the archives anymore. So let me see if I can have those guys move that to the top and pin it, which I'll do with next week's call as well. We have to, I guess, come up with a title for our new group of settings. But we'll pin both those at the top up here, which is, I think, a good idea. Yes, eventually we actually got a question about that as well. Einstein and Alexander can trade the US 30, you guys. Okay. I don't know if you know that or not. We have not shown the settings on that. So if we do get an overwhelming support for that, and maybe if that's something you want to see right now, just put in US 30 in the chat window, and I'll push to get a little heavier on the settings for that. So if you want to see the settings for US 30, just put US 30 in the chat window. That'll tell me I have some interest or not, and we can try and make that available. A lot of attendees this weekend, guys, so that's good. Great to see even on a holiday week you guys are here listening to me drone on. So, all right, cool. So it looks like US 30 to come. All right, cool. Again, today's the 5th of September. I am Steve Vetterl, wishing everybody a safe holiday weekend. If you're not having a holiday weekend, you can always make your own. Be well. May the trades be with you.